Thank you very much for joining us. I think Alex has pressed the record button. Just before I kick off, just so that you know, the record button, for those of you that haven't been at a cafe before, does the whole cafe, but we only put up the first section on YouTube. So when there's Q&As and things, you can say what you want, because that's in a sort of Chatham House rules situation. It will not be going live on YouTube. Anyway, good morning. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Jenny Milne. I'm the founder of SRITC, but also your host for today. And I'm really pleased that we are going to Europe today for this cafe and learning lots about rural mobility. As I say, for those of you that haven't been to a cafe before, your chat box is your friend. Okay, you will get to do a lot of chatting. It's a cafe and there is cake. So it's all about thinking positively. Introduce yourself in the chat box, please. And if you can, put a postcode or a town of where you're based, because that just helps us sort of pin where everybody is, and also helps us when we're applying for funding. But also it's a great place, the chat box, to share ideas, share links, and just say hello and get to know people. And I know the cafe every month is quite a lifeline for some people in rural areas, because they don't get the interaction with many people. And I have to say, I found that during some of the winter when I was not feeling very well. So without further ado, I'm going to kick off. And many of you know these slides, but for those of you that don't know, on the right-hand side are our directors. We have an advisory board, and we have what I call musketeers, which are helpers. And these people all volunteer their time to make SRITC what it is. Now, it's not our full-time jobs, but we're all very passionate about rural mobility, which is probably why we're all here, and island mobility. So when I came up with the idea of SRITC, it was to bring together all the different players and people and stakeholders that are involved in rural transport, because there was no, and we're going to talk about this later, it's the silos. It's breaking down those silos, bringing people together to make stuff actually happen. And I'm not going to bore you all with stuff that actually happens, but we do make change happen, which is great. So at the core of SRITC is us being supportive. So if you've got a problem, you've got a challenge, you want to help, use the chat box today or email us. We're full of useful resources, and I know the lovely ladies today will share some really good information from Europe on best practices. And we do have others from quite literally around the world. We will have Tasmania. I think I've seen Ireland join us today, and we've got Germany. So really use the resources here, because that's what we're for. When I say innovation focus, sometimes it's not about the piece of technology. It's actually just about bringing people together. It's common sense and making things happen in a simple way. It doesn't need to be a glorified, expensive piece of tech. So although we talk about innovation, it's not necessarily about spending lots of money on it. Transformation and community, that's what we are. And that's what you are all part of. And you all get the lovely news bulletins that land in your inbox. If you have information you want to share in the news bulletins, then please just put it in. If you've got a call for evidence that you want to find out some information, I see Sharon Payne of our advisory board is here, and she's down in England. She's asked for bits and pieces in the past as well. So we're here to help, and we can use that news bulletin because it goes to 700 different people throughout the world. So you will find some information on that. So if you are going to be in the Central Belt of Scotland in Edinburgh in June, you will find the team at the Royal Highland Show. So if you're going to be visiting, please do let us know, because it'd be lovely to see you, because there's lots going on. But before I introduce and hand over to the two lovely ladies, the team will put in the chat the forthcoming cafes that we've got. One that you won't necessarily have heard about is actually happening a week on Monday. And it's about electric vehicles. Alex will put bits in the chat about it, but it's about the funding around electric vehicles. If you're a business or a community that wants to apply in Scotland for the current round of funding that's out there for charging infrastructure, etc., then this cafe is for you, okay? So Alex will put bits in the chat about that one, and there'll also be the last cafe before the summer break in June put into the chat for you as well. On the news bulletin, if you've read it, we have produced our manifesto, which we had Scottish elections recently, and you'll be glad to hear that the big asks that we had in the manifesto have been put together and have been presented in the briefing papers to our new Transport Minister, Stephen Flynn. we will get to see Stephen Flynn and Gillian Martin, who is the new Rural and Net Zero Cabinet Minister at the Royal Highland Show. So we will be making an opportunity to share some of these manifesto asks. So if you haven't read it, then please do. And if you've got any feedback, I know a few of you have emailed me in the last couple of days with suggestions, then please do it. As always, we're looking for funding opportunities because we are a small enterprise that relies on different forms of funding. And as Scotland has even less funding available in it, we're looking at innovative ways. So Buy Me a Coffee is something really straightforward, that if you feel that you could donate some small amount of money for being part of a cafe or part of the community, that would really help, just so we can make sure we can sustain providing the cafes and providing the news bulletins and being around as a support to help. As I said, we'll be at the Royal Highland Show. And there'll be lots of photos coming from that. I do have a bit of an odd plea. It might be odd to some, but totally normal to others. Cable cars. I had an email in about cable cars and maybe using cable cars as a mode of transport in rural mobility. We have not discussed this ever in 5 years, okay? And whether we could use cable cars instead of having roads choked up with cars and buses, or instead of using putting in water transport in an area where there might be a crossing needed and you need to then have infrastructure at either end. So I am wondering if there are anybody can give case studies of cable cars in rural areas anywhere in the world. And if Mary has joined us, I would love to know if Tasmania or Australia use cable cars. I personally can't think of many. Melanie, you might know of some, I don't know, but just plant that seed. And if you come across something, please do put it into my inbox. So cable cars as a new form of, it's not new, but new to us, transport mode is on the radar now. So without further ado, these two lovely ladies have just been embarrassed because I took photographs of them before we started, okay? So they both are running or nearly completing, depending which viewpoint you're looking at, projects using European funding. Now, some of the lingo you might not be familiar with for those of you that aren't experienced with European funding, don't worry, they will spell it out to you, okay? So it's going to be Phillipa, and I've actually put Phillipa and Corina as names, but the wrong way round. So Corina, who's on the left with her headphones on, she will kick us off, and then we will be passing on to Phillipa. So I'm really grateful for them taking the time to do this today. But equally, I think it works both ways because I've helped present at some of their events as well. So Corina, where are you? I've lost you at the moment. Do you want to share your screen and introduce yourself and kick off? Thank you. I'm going to eat my cake now. If anybody else has got cake, now's the time to eat it, except for Corina.
Enjoy your cake and coffee, and hello from Austria. This is Corina. So I'm then employed at MOBIREG. That our slogan is mobility, so think regionally. We are a mobility lab dedicated to rural regions and to bring together different perspectives in our Austrian ecosystem. What is it all about? So I'm having an educational background. Still, I'm then responsible for raising the awareness also in schools or in other public authorities. And I'm also responsible for the national and international projects. So talking about funding opportunities, I'm very glad and happy to assist you here and to get a bigger network and to reach out. So what's our innovation lab? We launched it in October 2024. So you can see we are almost 2 years now here in Austria, then dealing with a team of 6 to 8 people. It depends because we have also students, workers with us who are then bringing really the research from the university as bachelor's and master's students here into our mobility lab from various disciplines. So we are working interdisciplinary. We have geographers, we have regional planners, we have architects. So we have a broad range of people then employed at our mobility lab. We are funded by a 5 years basis and operating on behalf of the Austrian Federal Ministry of Innovation, Mobility and Infrastructure. So we are then running till 2029 in the first phase, so hopefully we will get extended then. We are part of a national initiative, so the ministry is really then putting emphasis on our Austrian mobility and really then to connect our rural areas with each other. So we have a total, so here's a graph from Austria, we have a total of 10 mobility labs that are currently being funded. So we have 5 in rural regions and we have 5 in urban regions, also with different emphasis, with different thematic areas. But this is where we are and where we are currently being located. So we are in the south. So needless to say that we are then also having strong connections to other parts of Europe, especially Italy and Slovenia. Well, but you will hear that then later on. What's our background? And of course, we would like to have then climate-friendly mobility, and we see it as a critical element also for sustainable development. Of course, what is our challenge? We face the challenge that we have the rural regions are quite far away from the urban areas. So we are trying then to really bring together all the essential stakeholders to give information how we can then really come up with good opportunities and activities to overcome these barriers and challenges and to really bring benefits to the people living there. So we are then thinking of somehow being the bridge to this gap. So to address these issues, MOBIREG is offering then various community events in Austria, and we're doing activities like pilot activities, projects with companies, with schools, and so on. We'll show that later on as well. So our approach is not no one-size-fits-all solution. So we know that each and every rural area has its specificities, and we have different actors, and we would then like to bring in their expectations and also their needs and demands into that. So our key principles are then really avoid, shift, and improve in this sense. You can see it also here in the graphic, and our role is, as I said before, is really to bring together the local, regional, national, and also international partners on one table to discuss different options, different possibilities, and different perspectives. So we are an independent knowledge hub. What does it mean? So we are working in the knowledge triangle to foster collaboration and cooperation. We would like then to see also the mobility as a service to bring together the needs and demands of our mobility providers. We are then really keen on being on the national level to foster dialogue and to then connect all the different players and the stakeholders, as I said before, that we are then really being the one-stop shop, if you want to say it in this way, to then give information, provide knowledge exchange, and to give also good advices to upcoming events. And the knowledge transfer is really big activity from our side. So to find then really solutions and challenges for the rural areas. What are our key activities in the past 1.5 or roughly 2 years? So we have also established an international cooperation with the Baltics, for example, with the UK, so with Jenny, of course, as well. And as I said, also with Italy and Slovenia, but we're also looking then for further cooperation and collaboration with other European and or international partners. We established a platform. It's called MOBIREG Connect. It's a digital platform for information, knowledge exchange, where we are posting our events, where we're posting our best practices, our solutions, our challenges as well, and our we call them fuck ups because everybody has that, especially in projects. Not everything is running according to the plan, but that's also something we are dealing with. And we have also mobility cafes. So each year we are organizing roughly 4 cafes with different thematic areas and different target groups. You will see then one highlight later on from one of our past mobility cafes. So the stakeholder communication is really done one key topic or priority for us. So we are then establishing fact sheets based on our activities and our research. We're doing then best practices and also publishing it in papers, journals, newspapers, whatever is coming up. Then we are running also pilot projects either with companies or with schools or with municipalities, wherever we are then seeing there is a need. And for example, last year we had the thematic area of the corporate mobility management, where we then also brought companies and communities then together to see what can be done so that the companies in the rural areas then have other opportunities to get their employers from home to the companies and back. And we are also running pilot activities with different solutions, and with different challenges, of course. If there's questions coming up, I can then explain in more detail what we're doing here. So from the highlights itself, so this was a citizen science conference because I think it's very necessary and essential also to bring these important topics then to the public and also bring in their specific perspectives and expectations. So we were then hosting a workshop at the Citizen Science Conference here in Austria back in March this year. It was very successful. So we had a workshop planned and we had 35 people then joining. It was really cool. One of our mobility cafes we did was in a school, in the upper secondary technical high school, where this high school is also located in a rural area, and the students have the challenge of not being able to commute properly to the school. So one student even told us it takes him 2 hours one way to come to the school in the morning and then go back. So it's really challenging for them. So they had in a workshop to come up with maybe better solutions or easier solutions to then commute maybe together or find other ways of commuting. It was really cool. So, and the highlight also, we kicked off a new interdisciplinary pilot project to overcome sectoral boundaries. So we brought together really people from the mobility sector, from the economic planning, tourism, biodiversity, and energy that are working then together to bring up cool ideas and to bring in new ways of then mobilities in the rural area of Carinthia. And I would also like to highlight our upcoming event because we have a next international cafe on November 26th. The title is Rural Roots and Future Roots, Driving Innovation in Regional Mobility. It will be, of course, online, and you are more than welcome to join us there. So thank you very much from my side, and feel free to ask questions. Thank you.
Bad, thanks, Corina. I think we'll be talking about school buses when we come back to this. Phillipa, over to you, please. You might need to unmute as well.
Yes, sorry. Let me just quickly get up the presentation.
Isn't it nice that it's 3 ladies today? It's not often we have 3 ladies presenting. It's great.
Why is it not working? Okay, give me one.
It worked earlier, didn't it?
Yeah, it worked. I just clicked too many buttons at once, and then my computer got a little bit slow. I believe share. There we go. I believe you can see it now.
Yep, all good.
Okay, great. So hello everyone. My name is Phillip Bernard. I'm sitting in Barcelona, Spain, and I work for a consultancy where we focus on the public sector and basically helping them and working together with them on different innovative topics to really help them shape and make use of the topics that they want to work on and that are in their focus, and especially my focus is in mobility. So I have the great pleasure to working with the province of Overijssel, and which is a province in the Netherlands, and they're the lead partner of this project. So maybe I will explain that a little bit. So basically, Rural Mobility is an Interreg Europe project. For those of you that are unfamiliar with Interreg, it's basically a European funded project where you can apply to, and you have a consortium and you work on different topics. So for this specific project, we're focusing on mobility in rural areas. In a second, I will dive into what that actually means. But basically, in this specific project, we have 3 years of an active project, and then a year afterwards, we have a kind of a monitoring monitoring year, where we can see and kind of finalize all the activities that have been happening over the last 3 years. So in that project, we're working together with municipalities, transport planners and regions from the Netherlands, from Germany, from Spain, from Sweden, from Portugal, from Slovenia, and from Estonia. So it's a very big mix of European organizations, and together we're working on So our focus in this project is to provide public authorities and transport planners with the knowledge and the know-how and the tools and the skills to basically transition from public transport into a public mobility system. Later on, I will dive a little bit deeper into what that actually means for us, and really help these public authorities and transport planners to have the skills to plan a mobility system beyond traditional public transport. So away from the one-size-fits-all that we heard Jenny and Corina talking about earlier, away from that into a really focused mobility system for that specific region, because obviously rural areas are so different. So again, like one size doesn't fit all. So instead of giving different solutions, we want to help them better plan, better tackle the challenges, to really be able to figure out a mobility system that fits for the specific needs in their region. So this is pretty much what we're doing, and later on I will explain a little bit what I mean with the tools and the know-how and the knowledge. Basically we have 4 years of project, and we're currently in the final year. So we have established the current issues, the challenges, etc., but also what the regions and the public transport planners actually need in order to be able to create that shift. So let me go a little bit into detail. So even though I think you're all very familiar with the challenges in rural areas, however, I just wanted to quickly highlight them as well. So basically, you have the public transport authorities, which are under a lot of financial pressure. And obviously serving rural areas is high costly, but also there is a high shortage in bus drivers, and especially rural areas can see that. So then we also have the citizens in rural areas who obviously have very limited to no access to public transport. In some figures, we can see how that really has decreased over the last years. And then lastly, which comes to livability in rural areas, which I think is very interesting, of just the high car dependency. And with that comes two things, is like obviously the high dependency on cars, but also the social isolations of the people that are unable to move themselves, as well as because of the high dependency, that actually means that people use the car more, the streets are fuller, the CO2 emissions are higher, etc. So livability, not just in rural areas, but actually in urban areas that have that pressure from people commuting into the urban areas, is higher and higher. So these are just some of the challenges, which I'm sure you're all aware. And I think we talk about it a lot. But so this is kind of our starting point. So, and this is a visual that we like to use. It's a Dutch visual, so you can see that we covered the Dutch words with the English words. However, this is our public mobility visual, and I think that represents really well how we are envisioning as the project, the Rural Mobility Project, on how we are envisioning what actually public mobility means, how we're envisioning the future of public transport. So basically you can see this interconnectedness. Obviously this is like a hub that connects all of this, but basically it just shows the interconnectedness between all these different solutions, the different players in that system, and moving away from the silos that have been mentioned earlier, and into an integrative system where all these solutions are playing together, where all these actors playing together and working together, to make it easier and more accessible for people, especially in rural areas, to reach the more urban areas to meet the public transport corridors. So obviously that's very great, but what does that actually mean? And obviously seeing this very elaborate image that maybe doesn't really scream rural. So basically what we have envisioned in that project is a shift from public transport to public mobility. So what does that actually envision? And throughout the project, we have identified 5 key pillars where we see that we keep on talking about and that for us are the most important to dive deeper into in TACOM. So yeah, I hope you can see it. So basically, the first one is actually the mobility solutions that we're talking about. So obviously, we have the traditional public transport such as buses and trains. However, especially in rural areas, we have to start putting other opportunities into the mix, such as carpooling, paratransit, DRT system, etc. So moving away from just thinking about the traditional must-have solutions, but also thinking about, okay, how can we actually integrate some new solutions that are more fitting for certain areas. Then we have the governance of the whole thing. So as mentioned before, shifting away from the silos and going into a more coordinated, collaborative planning. So that means from small public authorities to bigger regions to public transport planners for bigger regions, that what we often see is that there's a big missing in collaboration. So everyone has their little areas where they're planned. However, they don't actually talk to each other. There's a big miss of integrating, communicating, and actually understanding what is everyone doing, what is everyone responsible for, because there's a lot of opportunity to make things more efficient, to plan better, etc. So, and then we have obviously the finance part. So what we currently see is that there's a specific transport budget available, and that's all that's being used, as well as obviously, especially in rural areas, there's more need for subsidies. So kind of what we want to do is move away from this like rigid subsidies and going into more an integrated funding for value. So maybe instead of investing X amount of money into a public transport, like a traditional public transport such as a bus, what other opportunities are out there for the same amount of money that could potentially reach more people, that is potentially more valuable in a certain like rural region. Then we have the impact, and I've had conversations with Jenny about that before, because I think that's something that you're also working on. So basically, moving away from traditional KPIs that are designed for urban areas and looking into, okay, what do rural areas actually need, and how can we measure a successful public transport system in rural areas, because the key performance indicators that would be used would be very, very different, because the idea of a public mobility system is not necessarily the same as in an urban area. So looking more at the social aspect on connecting people, reduce isolations, etc. And then, and then lastly, we have the end users. So going away from just planning for the end user, but planning with the end user. So integrating them into all the different steps that are necessary to go from planning to integrating public transport systems. So yeah, these are the main 5 pillars that we're currently working with, and that we think are very important to look into, and we need to create that shift from the more traditional upper row to a more system thinking approach. So I'm not going to go into too much detail because I think I've been already talking quite a bit, but basically what you can see here is the 5 pillars again. But then you can also see that they have the different levels. So we have the European level, we have the national and regional and local level. So obviously, again, a lot of the times the system is currently still designed in silos. So a local level is planning in their local organization. However, then you have the European organizations that have great ideas and great initiatives, but they're actually not well integrated with what actually is happening in the local regions. So kind of creating a better understanding, creating a better communication and integration of all these levels is what we're also looking into. And then, so what does that actually mean? So basically, we have these 5 pillars, and basically what I try to explain is we have to move away from, or like what we're trying to create the shift from what is currently there to what we envision within the 5 pillars. However, also what we see within the planning mix is you can't look at these 5 pillars individually, but they codependent on each other very, very much. So you can't do mobility solutions if you don't have a well-functioning governance bodies. You have to understand that investing in new mobility solutions actually needs to change the way we're currently looking into the public transport budget. So moving away from budget only being available for public transport solutions such as buses and trains, but making that shift into enabling financial opportunities for other mobility solutions. This is what we're currently seeing as well, and so on. So we can really see how interconnected they are. One second. Sorry. Exactly. So, and like to explain a little bit more the vision that we're currently in, and basically, so we are focusing on all the topic individually. We're deep diving into them and how we can actually tackle them, and our overall vision for that is actually like not choosing throughout these different 5 pillars, but actually mixing them. So especially with mobility solutions, as an example, is like you don't have to say, okay, I only want one or I only want another one, but saying, okay, instead of investing all my money in public buses, I want to reduce one line because I see there's no need for it anyways, and I don't want to keep on putting money into it where there's actually no use, but then rather using that specific money and investing it for something else. I hope that makes sense. So instead of playing around with instead of having a traditional budget that you can only use for certain things, we want to shift away from that and creating kind of a mix and an integrated system. And being able to do that, we need to consider all these different aspects. And what we do with our consortium is talk about, okay, what do you actually need? And what we see is that we need them, or like they need to have the first step of how to actually even open up these conversations with authorities and policymakers to even say, how about we start investing in something else? And envisioning, or like, and helping them envision why investing in a different mobility system might actually be the right thing for a rural area. So therefore also diving into KPIs that are more targeted for the rural areas that highlight the social aspect more. So yeah, and that comes to my last slide. I'm sorry, I hope I didn't confuse you too much. But basically, our idea is, and we're currently in the final stages of the project, is to bring this all together. So we are working on these 5 different steps individually. However, the idea is obviously to bring this all together into a so-called navigator that helps public transport planners, public authorities to take the first steps. So to bring all the knowledge together and guide them through a step-by-step approach, not to find a one-size-fits-all solution, but to understand what opportunities and options are out there, and how to go through that step of to find out what actually could work in their specific region. So this is currently what we're working on, and that we're expecting throughout the end of the year to be finished. So yeah, so to not have a one-size-fits-all mobility solution aspect, but more of a how to start planning for something that needs to be way more tailored. So this is currently what we're doing, and where we're in the current final steps in. So yeah, that's it from me. Thank you very much for giving me your time. I hope I wasn't confusing you too much. And yeah, if you want to stay in touch, I left my email address there, but also I connected our Interreg website there in case you want to look for more information, but also another platform will come within this year.